What does racial healing mean?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Uh, Racial healing to me uh, is the effort made by mainstream America. And when I say mainstream America, I mean the mainstream people that are in power make a conscious effort to level the playing field as far as race is concerned, and extend to minorities the same opportunities that are available to the majority.
Thank you. Can you explain a time that you have experienced racism firsthand?
Yes, as a young man growing up in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, the first time I was ever called the N-word face to face by a white person was a police officer, a Fort Lauderdale policeman. He called me the N-word because I would not allow myself to be taken advantage of by the police. And I didn't know my rights, but I knew enough. I knew enough to not allow myself to be taken advantage of. And so that triggered him to uh, call me the N-word. And so that was my first actual experience. But even worse than that was working on the beach in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, working at a hotel. I could work at the hotel, but I'd walk across the A1A to the beach and get in the water. And so that was an eye-opening experience for me.
Okay, can you tell me, like, how did that affect you in your life from that moment on?
Well, it made me angry, and I was not during the late 50s, the early 60s. I was a teenager, and I I became militant. I became angry because I saw how my father was treated, and he was treated like a child by the boss on his job, and so I became very militant. I was not a follower of Martin Luther King. I was a follower of Stokely Carmichael and H. Rap Brown. Those were the real militant blacks during that time that were fighting for change. And so this is what actually motivated me to not accept the status quo. It made me want to rebel and to seek equality. And so it didn't make me cower in fear. It made me militant, and I would not allow myself to be taken advantage of or underestimated as a person.
Can you tell me about a time that you witnessed racism firsthand?
Oh yes, yes. It was not something that was hidden. I see. During the time that I came up, it was a bit different from the earlier decades, but the problem that we had was as a young man, I felt like I was basically not taken seriously, especially when I went into the military. And one of the most memorable thing I have about racism is I was in Vietnam. I was a combat soldier in Vietnam. In the jungle, in the field as we call it, we fought side by side. But when we returned to the real area after all of the fighting was over, or the mission was accomplished, uh, there was still the division: whites with whites, black with blacks. And so it let me know that even though we were there fighting for whatever the country that says that we were fighting for, nevertheless, there was still no equality. And to return to the United States and to be treated in such a way that let me know that I was not appreciated as a veteran, as a person. It was really an eye-opening experience, and it was hurtful too. Very hurtful.
Okay, so let me ask you this. First, were you born during the Civil Rights Movement and the Chicano movement?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
How old were you?
During the 60s and 70s.
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, during the 60s, I was in high school. I graduated from high school in 1966.
Okay.
So that will give you an idea as to what the mood was during that particular time. So from my earliest remembrance was from the latter part of the latter part of the 50s and starting in the early 60s. Because the early 60s, I was in 62. I was in just gotten out of elementary school, going into junior high school, and so it was those experiences still etched in my mind. So yeah, I definitely remember during that.
Can you tell me how it affected you and those around you?
I guess to some degree, it made me bitter. I'll be totally honest with you. Not only did I trust white people because I saw the racial disparity, the inequality, but to a large degree, I hated them. I was filled with hate, to be honest with you. And that motivated me to not allow another man, I don't care what his skin color was, to walk over me. And so during the 60s, I was one of the protesters, but I was not one that would cause damage in the area where I live. We caused damage in the areas of in downtown Fort Lauderdale, in the shopping district in Fort Lauderdale at that time. And so I spent time in jail before rioting. And simply because of the fact that we stepped outside of the norm. And when I say we, it was the organization that I started. And we did not tear up our neighborhood. We went and we tore up things downtown where where white folks shopped at. And so I was angry. I was an angry young man, and for the most part, I was resentful of anyone that was white.
Can you tell me a little bit about where you grew up and the demographics of your neighborhood?
Yes, well, okay. And when I grew up on the west side of the tracks, okay. At this time, when I was just before, actually from the time about, I would say about 7 or 8 years old, we lived on the west side of the tracks, and on the east side of the tracks was where all the whites lived.
Mm.
And that was the railroad tracks were the dividing line. And so we were not allowed to go on the other side of the tracks. Not unless my father could, because there was he had business to take care of, and that's where a lot of the companies were on that side. But as far as being able to socialize or something of that nature, no, we stayed to ourselves. And so, but our neighborhood was close knit. One thing about it is the grown-ups in our neighborhood, they were a watch committee, if you will, for us young people. And if we did something that was wrong, and one of the neighbors told my father, then I was in real trouble. Mm-hmm. But the neighborhood itself was real close knit, a lot of camaraderie. And as far as my growing up is concerned, I didn't even know that we were poor until I graduated from high school, because my father always provided everything that we needed.
Really?
We never went lacking anything. And so after I graduated from high school, I said, then I realized that what categorized a person as being poor was their income. And so my father was a hardworking man, but he was not an educated man. Mm-hmm. But he was a man that could perform many different tasks. And so we were blessed children.
That's really great. So now let me ask you, for today's society, what do you think we can do to end racism now?
That's a good question. That's a real good question. Involvement, civic involvement, the power of the vote. What I found out early on, after my stint in the jail for rioting, was that you can't change society from the outside. You have to change it from the inside. And so that means that as a people, we cannot just accept status quo. Young people, and especially you and your peers, y'all need to not only be active in active civically in politics, but you need to gain as much education as you can. Understand the system that we live in. What we see now, as far as all of the demonstrations, I'm totally in favor of that, because it brings our plight into full view. Mm-hmm. And this is something that helped during the time that I was growing up in. The riots that we participated in back in the 60s brought our plight as black people to a full view, and because of that, we were placated with different things that would make our community better. But we don't have to do it through violence. We can do it through being out in the forefront and challenging the status quo, challenging those who are in power. Elect the right people, put the right people in office. And if they're not doing the job, then put someone else in office. But we have to stand up and be counted. And it's necessary for all of the young people. No one is too young. Understand what the movement is all about. Don't allow the movement to be taken over by thugs who are out to cause havoc and to cause all kind of problems, but let it be posited by intelligent people who know what their rights are. And that's one of the main things here. For the most part, we don't know our rights the way that we should. We don't know the Constitution in the manner that we should. Because if we did, there are a lot of things that happen to us. Say, for example, in traffic stops. They wouldn't happen if all of us knew what the police could and could not do. You know, and it really hurts me to hear about a black man getting killed, but getting killed running from the police. There is absolutely, I'd never run from the police. You know, because the thing about it is what you do is you give them a target and a reason to inflict deadly harm on us. Stand up and face them. You know, so we have to be more vigilant. We have to be more visible. We cannot allow ourselves to just cower down to those in authority simply because of our ignorance. So we have to step up and learn what our rights are.
Right. So now when you were talking about voting and politics, how does it make you feel to know that people today don't want to vote?
It's shameful. People have died for the right to vote. People have been whipped. If they could only see the pictures of black men back in the 30s and 40s, see their backs had so many whelps on them until it looked like a road map. They were beaten and lynched and killed, all because of the fact that they were not going to accept things as they were. Okay, so for a person today, especially young people, I've heard individuals say, it doesn't matter about, it doesn't matter because they're going to do what they want to do. Yeah, they're going to do what they want to do as long as you don't do what you're supposed to do.
Right.
And so we have to stand up and be counted. Yeah, a prime example, the political race for the Senate and Congress here in Georgia, in the state of Georgia. Something that happened when the people, the minorities, not just black, but all minorities, turned out en masse and flipped the House and the Senate, all because of the vote. And what has happened here is to show you how important voting is. The governor of Georgia, when he was the Secretary of State, he shut down several voting precincts in Georgia. And right after that, he ran for governor and he won by shutting down, by eliminating the ability of mainly minorities to vote. And so they're still doing that here in Georgia with this new law that they just passed. But it doesn't matter, because if a person has to get a ride, there is no excuse in anyone not voting. It said if you don't vote, you don't have a voice. But the thing about it, if a person doesn't vote, they eliminate the voice of other people. So voting is crucial.
Yes. How do you feel about the race relations in our country today?
It's shameful. It is shameful that we have to, as black men especially, we have to go through a ritual when stopped by the police. You gotta put your hands, show them your hands. you gotta they take advantage of the fact that we, for the most part, are not active civically, and we don't know our rights. We don't know what they can and cannot do. Okay, so it angers me for the most part because of the fact that we as a people, not just blacks, but as a people, we allow individuals to become policemen who have no business with a badge and gun. None whatsoever. And we basically support their behavior because we don't say anything. We don't go down and file reports. We don't file charges against them. And so the police, for the main fact, I wrote a paper once, and that paper covered how policemen, the reason that policemen do what they do, and mainly white policemen, because what people don't understand is when the average white policeman goes to the academy to be trained as a policeman, he goes with a preconditioned mindset about blacks. And because of that, we are looked upon as being no good, as being criminals, as being distrustful, and all of that. And so when he encounters a black man, his hand is on his gun. And a white man can do the same thing and nothing happens. So, but we see this, and all we're saying is, well, they're going to do what they want to do anyway. That is asinine. And it angers me to the point of us allowing things to happen. A lot of this is happening because we allow it.
Yeah.
Now, what is happening now, as far as the protests and everything, that's a good thing. But what I love to see is the fact that we're not the only one protesting. We have whites who are sympathetic with our cause. They support our cause. And that's a good thing. So that much is that, it shows that there is some improvement. But we've always had individuals who would look past race in order to help us as a people present the causes or present the problems that we suffer with as a minority.
Okay. Now, with all of this that we have talked about, and you summing it all up, can you tell me what racism looks like to you?
Racism looks like many corporate executives in suits and high places that have taken off the sheets and now wearing three-piece suits. There is still slavery, but it's not physical, it's economic. That's what racism looks like to me. Many programs that have been implemented have been enforced to basically put blacks in a category or put minorities in a category where they get stuck. It's sort of like the experiment that was performed by scientists. They took a rat and put it in a clear plastic cage. On one side, they put a little food drop so the rat could go and eat food. Mm-hmm. And on the other side, they put a cocaine drop. So they would allowed cocaine to be put in there as an experiment to see what addiction was about. Well, the rat got to the point where he never went toward food. He always went toward the cocaine. Well, my point is that programs that have been started, like food stamp and welfare, they have basically hamstrung many of us, many minorities, to the point where they will run to the post to run to the mailbox to get a check, but not running toward a better education or some type of increased skills set, something of that nature. And I can tell you for a fact that I have seen and know 3 generations of welfare mothers. And it's really pitiful because the children grow up with the same mentality. So I know that assistance is needed by some people, but it should not be permanent. And so the long story short, the system, and when I say the system, I mean those individuals who are in power, they continue to promote racism in an undercover manner, because they do things that will satisfy people who just want to get by, as opposed to individuals who want to strive and who want to accomplish something. Now, we have, as a people, we've made giant strides. Doctors, lawyers, teachers, and so on, and all the professions. We made tremendous strides there. But as the professionals have to reach back and help those who are still struggling, pull them up, help them progress. So that the racism that we experience will, I won't say it will be totally eliminated, but what it will be is decimated to the point where the playing field will be level, and we'll be able to make conscious choices and decisions for ourselves. So racism right now is like I said, it's no longer physical. I mean, slavery is no longer physical, but it is economical, and it's still socially, because we are still looked upon as being subservient to those who are in power.
Okay. So, as in society today, would you say that you are still an angry black man?
No. I got over that a long time ago, because I found out that once I got an education, once I learned exactly what it took to get the attention of not only my peers, but to get the attention of the ones who thought they were to some degree over me, or to some degree better than me. And when you can articulate what you know, not what you think or what you feel, but when you can articulate what you know from research data, empirical evidence, then you gain more respect. So no, I'm not angry. Now, I don't like what I see. I'll be totally honest with you about that. I still don't like the fact that I can go out and get in my car and be stopped for some asinine reason and become a participant in the money grab that a lot of counties and states have. And that's all it is, a money grab. You know, as I'm traveling, we were on our way to North Carolina, and it just burned me to see black folks beside the road with policemen all going all through their cars. And when it was totally unnecessary, when you know what the Fourth Amendment says that, you don't have to succumb to illegal searches and seizures. But if we don't know that, if we don't know our rights, then we'll be taken advantage of systematically, because racism is systematic. It's Leslie Graham said that there's no such thing as systemic racism. Well, Leslie Graham is in total denial, coming from South Carolina. So racism is alive and well. But the more we know, then the more we can dispel it, the more we can take advantage of what we need to, as far as seeing it decimated. The more we know.
So, what advice can you offer to young black men and young black women, or even me as your granddaughter, growing up in society today?
Walk with your head up, your shoulders back, and your chest out. The key to being a productive member of this society is education, and putting that education into practice. Young men, especially young men, because see, going back to slavery times, there was a letter written by a white man that instructed other slave owners how to control slaves, how to control the men. And that was to put the women in charge. Well, in today's society, we are all equal, okay? But as far as going forward, people who are married, I mean, there is no reason for anyone to not have an education, whether it's just a high school diploma. But nowadays, you got to go further than that. But there are trades, especially for young men. There are trades that can be taken up and practiced that will move them above and away from minimum wages. And that's the key. The key is to be able to be a contributing factor to society, and to let individuals know that, hey, I'm not gonna allow you to walk over me. And the way to do that is to let's be real. The dollar is what people pay attention to. That's what people pay attention to. Now, that is not only, that's not the only way, but the more you know, the better off you are. And so my advice would be for young people to get to know what is at your disposal, because they know. They practice it. Why do you think that there are so many black men in jail now? They're in jail for minor offenses because they could not afford attorneys, and they had to settle for a free attorney that has a huge caseload and did not pay attention, don't even care about them. Public defenders. as opposed to a white person that goes before the court on a serious charge, but they can afford a high-powered attorney, and they walk away from it. But and you look at the trend here in the past few years. How many white men have you seen that have spent decades in prison and was finally let go because the evidence was released? Think about it. A man spent 44 years in prison. A man spent 35, close to 50 years. One man, 83 years old, went to prison when he was a teenager, all because they could not afford the kind of representation that would have given them the ability to present all the evidence and to see and to call out these detectives that were just piling up unnecessary charges against them. And that it is ludicrous for young men to go to prison for just minor offenses because they could not afford attorneys. And they couldn't afford attorneys because they didn't have the resources, and for the most part, their family didn't have the resources. But if you have the ability to hire someone that is reputable, then that makes it much better. So my advice is for all of you young people, not only to get an education, but to become totally active in the process of selecting individuals to represent you. Become knowledgeable of the process.
Well, thank you. And I just want to thank you for participating in my interview. Say bye to the camera.
Well, I sincerely hope that it was informative. I hope that if it's viewed, something I said will resonate in the hearts and minds of individuals who are in a position to help bring about change.
I did too.